You're listening to the Karmic Mirror podcast, where we explore the wisdom tucked within the layers of the self-help world.
Together, we bridge the gap between esoteric teachings and practical tools for everyday life, with self-love and personal growth at the heart of each conversation.
Whether you're a seasoned seeker or just beginning your path, join us and uncover the magic within and around you. Welcome back to Karmic Mirror Podcast. Today's conversation asked us to slow down and make room for something that we don't often talk about, but that touches all of us. Our guest works at the threshold between life and death, not from a place of fear, but from deep reverence and remembrance. She is an end-of-life doula, spiritual teacher, and guide who has spent years sitting with people in their final moments, witnessing the many ways we meet death and, in turn, how that shapes the way we live. Her teachings explore surrender as a practice, the idea of dying before you die, and the energetic and spiritual awareness we carry with us throughout life and into death. At the heart of her work is a simple but radical remembering that death is not separate from our spiritual path and that welcoming it into awareness can help us live more fully, honestly, and awake. We are honored to explore these themes together. So, welcome, Korona.
Hello.
Thank you, Michelle and Allie. Wow, that intro was beautiful. I couldn't have said it better myself.
We are beyond excited to have you on this episode. As I started digging into your work and the background, I told you I was getting very, very tender. And I think I was getting really tender because it just really brought to light this area that I think a lot of people don't shine light on and put focus in. And so I'm just really excited to dive deeper, and we're going to get into all things. But so our guests can get to know you a little bit better, we'd love to talk about your top three, your sun, moon, and rising, if you know those.
So I am a Libra, Sun Moon, super Libra, and Pisces rising. So I am all about balance, harmony, creating bridges, which is sort of very on par with the work that I do, and bridging life and death. And the Pisces rising is, how people view me, which is also like very appropriate because I'm sitting with people that are transitioning, who are, going through that final sacred chapter of their lives. And um, I basically meet that moment with compassion and love. And I really feel like my my sun, moon, and my rising is almost like a just divine sort of intervention to bring in the work and my calling, and also my life and how it unfolded from my birth throughout life. It's just I've always felt like there are so many parallels and there's so many alignments in my life, and as soon as I step into alignment, everything sort of opens up. So there's meaning behind it all. It's all
Yeah.
connected.
That alignment is so Libra, right? That balance. And then you had mentioned, or I had read somewhere in your work, that the near birth experience, which I have not heard of that term before. And I'm wondering if that is something, a good place to start, just kind of the introduction to you and what you do in that near birth experience. If you could elaborate on what that is and how that impacted your journey.
Yeah, so near birth experience is a term I coined myself, so you won't find it anywhere. Although I would love to find people who have experienced what I have. So I do think they're out there. You hear about near death experiences. There's also shared death experience that's not very well known. It's basically when someone is very deeply connected with their loved one, and the loved one that is passing, as soon as they start leaving their body, they have this shared experience where the loved one who's healthy and vital will sometimes, it manifests in different ways, but sometimes they will almost feel like they're having an out of body experience, like as if they're starting to travel with them. But then the ego comes into place and you get this like, oh my gosh, what is happening? And you get pulled right back into your body. And those experiences have, I know someone who's actually become an end of life doula because they had that shared death experience. So a near birth experience is the best way that I can describe what happened to me as a child. So, as soon as I was, my very first memories aren't of my childhood. They're of this place. I'm sorry. Let's call it a sense of being. It was a sense of being. It wasn't a place. It wasn't a past life. There was no story associated to it whatsoever. It was just this sense of being that I was in this state, and then I got plugged into this state, into this body, into the human experience. What I remembered was this amazing sense of peace, love, and bliss. So then when I was a child, whenever anything had come up in my life that was hard, my parents arguing or even watching the news, it was really difficult on me because I had remembered where I came from and I called it home. So it got to the point where if I was in sort of a difficult situation, I would just start screaming to my parents, I just want to go home. And they took it the completely wrong way. It was really difficult for them.
Driving you to your physical back home. We can't leave yet.
Yeah.
They were like, what are you talking about? Like, you don't know anything
Mm.
else. Like, we've lived in the same place. What is home? And then I'd be like, the place before I came here. Wherever I was before I was here, I want to go back there. That's home. And that was a little misinterpreted by them because they thought that I was suicidal,
Mhm.
but I clearly wasn't.
Mhm.
It was much deeper than that, but that's how it presented itself to them. So I had to sort of mask and I started becoming a people pleaser and started to try to fit into the box. And what I really actually needed to do was integrate the experience. It was like coming out of a plant medicine journey, right? It's like, oh my gosh, now I have to integrate this, but I didn't have the space. And so I came into this bifurcated world that felt dense and fractured, but I remember being whole and blissful and perfect. So it was really difficult in my early years. I wasn't a happy child. Children come into this world and they have that tabula rasa, the clean slate, and everything is awe-inspiring, right? You look at everything as new. And for me, I kind of wasn't like that. I didn't find awe in everything. But the funny part is throughout my process is I reach that. I'm like, I'm the kid now. I find awe in everything.
Mhm.
I
So
love
just it
that.
took me integrating and doing all the inner work. And it really opened me up. I kind of, it's kind of an analogy of it would be like I felt like I was in this like steel or heavy stone box, and I was a light in this box, and I couldn't quite, no one could see the light, especially when I started masking. I couldn't see it myself. And then my whole life was just about chipping away at
Mhm.
that stone box. And the more I chipped, it's like the light would start coming out and through. And I was like, that's when my calling came in and realizing there must be a reason why I remember. Like, what is this remembering? And what I realized at a certain point is that I didn't really have a fear of death like other people did. Because to me, it's just going back home. It's so obvious. Like, there's no question for me about the afterlife. None. It's more than 100% there. Like, we are infinite beings, and there's no way around it, And I so recognizing that, I thought, well, this isn't the norm, but this is something that I can share. So that's when I started having these ideas. I've already been doing a lot of spiritual work, and I came to understand like maybe I should actually sit with people that are going through this, that are terrified. And maybe my energy could shine a light on them. And if they're going through that existential crisis at end of life, like maybe I can help. And I volunteered at, this was when I was living in Boston. I volunteered at a hospice and almost immediately recognized that, yeah, this is what I meant to do. And this is really, really transformative for people. And for me, it's just such an honor to be part of that chapter in their lives because it's just so sacred if you know how to navigate through it. But it takes a lot of work in your own life while you're vibrant and can do the work to get to a place where it's really sacred and beautiful.
Is there a way to describe that knowing that you showed up and you just knew that this was kind of your path?
Oh, for stepping into the path.
Yeah, like you had mentioned when you showed up and when you were volunteering for hospice, and you said you walked in and you knew. And I was curious because I think a lot of people, right, we're searching for our purpose, our life mission, and our goals. And it piqued my interest of what did that knowing look like for you? And not that it looks the same for everyone, but what does it look like for you, your knowing?
I would say that it was an ease about it. Not easy, it was an ease. There's a big difference because sitting with people that are dying is not easy and everyone's different. And my very first hospice patient had dementia. So it was difficult, and even her medical conditions on top of that, they were very difficult. But what I recognized is it's really energetic. Like I started to see that my presence was making a really significant impact without me really having to try. It wasn't me having to be performative or put on the mask like I had been doing my whole life. I realize I take the mask off, and that's where I shine in those moments where I'm just being as authentically true to myself as possible and just showing up for this person. And that feeling of taking the mask off, I think that's the ease. Like I love how, is it Ram Dass says like death is like, what is it, taking off a tight shoe? That
Mhm.
feeling of like, okay, I'm lighter, I'm freer. And it was sort of like that, like taking off a tight shoe. You just kind of realize you can relax into it and just flow with it. And also I recognize that it's my path because as soon as I stepped into it, all the doors started opening everywhere. And I've noticed that in my life. Like if I'm not aligned, if I'm off my path, I'll see doors closing, be like, what's going on? Why are things not working out the way they need to be? Like, I want abundance in this way through this means, and it's not happening. But as soon as I stepped into that, it just, and I just flowed. So that's how, yeah, that's how it looked like for me, ease and flow.
I love that. I love so many of the things that you've named from the very beginning. One, just all the Piscean, one foot in this world on the material plane and one foot in the other, and the fact that this is your rising and like literally the path you are continuing to connect more and more throughout your life with and deeper because it's what you're meant to do is so beautiful. And this analogy of the box and the light and just naming this experience in such a beautiful way that we all kind of go through. Like, we don't all, but I think if we're so fortunate in this lifetime to recognize the sort of ways, the conditioning that we pick up, right? The masking, the people pleasing in your case, and also be able to name and see the way that we come back to ourselves, right? It's like so much of it is unlearning and remembering and coming back to ourselves. And that is the alignment. And it's so hearing it for you in that way made me think of this masking, the people pleasing that you name as almost this experience that you, and this is my own, what's coming up. So, I could be totally wrong, but almost as if like there's this human experience you needed to embody that wasn't authentic and in alignment for your soul, but but you needed to embody it because you were going to be so much of your time and your work is going to be sitting with people who are very much rooted in the material and the human existence of fear and all of the feelings that we're meant to experience as humans. And so I wonder if coming in and if you were born this with this Piscean energy of just knowing what real home is, bliss, unity, connection, all of this, everything that you described as your birth experience or near birth experience. So it's going on a tangent and hopefully I can bring it back home. But I think there's a lot to that. If you were born into a family that was like, yes, let's do it. You understand life before being on planet Earth and really helped you cultivate that. The experience of sitting with people at the end of their life might be very, very different because you got to experience the polar opposite of what you came here to do. And I love it's just super perceptive to come back around and see. And yeah, so I don't know. I just love that. I think that's really great. And I wonder if, not to dwell on this too much, but what aspects for you growing up or living, growing into this maybe were, I don't know, was it challenging knowing, like having this experience? Like, what are some of the things that you found? I don't know, do you hear where I'm going with this?
Yeah, no, I get you. I feel you. I totally feel you.
I'm like, can I just trail off my question and hope that you're picking up what I'm putting down?
I love what you said because I've thought about that a lot. There's that part of me that like I always wished I had the parents that could get it. And especially like these days, I'm witness to parents that are super conscious with how they raise their children. And I even have a friend who is, what's the title? It's like oh my gosh, maybe it's on his business card, but he's a psychologist, but it's all about consciousness, interweaving spirituality and consciousness with psychology.
Mm,
And I told him once, like, oh my God, I wish people like you existed when I was a kid, because that's exactly what I would have needed, that space for someone to be seen. Because
mhm,
that's what I always needed was to be seen because I felt like I wasn't seen and understood. But scratch all that because everything is perfect.
mhm,
And I came into the life that I did with the parents that I have, and that was all perfect because I needed that tension. I needed to fight for home.
mhm,
Home was a place that was understood. I would have just been like, oh, it's great. Everyone gets me, and I have nothing to do here. But instead, it was like, home became such a pivotal part of my life. It became what I went to every time I had something really bad, still to this day. Like if I go through a breakup and it's heart-wrenching, I get back home. Like I somehow, in my worst state, like dropped to the ground on my knees wailing. I touch that place. I
mhm,
also touch it with meditation and other things like that. And it shows me like, oh my gosh, this is really powerful because if you can get through grief or you can get through any catalyst in your life that's difficult, on the other side of it is a gift. And I had been shown that time and time again. And I also, yeah, I just feel like if I didn't have that hard catalyst at the beginning of my life, I really wouldn't be fighting for what I am now. And I wouldn't be fighting for people to remember. Because
mhm,
it's not just for me. I think everyone has the capacity to remember. And I witness this. Like when people are at end of life, I've sat with atheists who, spent their whole entire lives thinking that they just get buried in the ground and worms eat their body and they don't exist anymore and there is
mhm,
nothing else. Towards the end of their life, they're like, holy shit, I was wrong. Because all of a sudden they're sensing that the veil becomes thin. There's certain things that happen at end of life, like visions and terminal lucidity, things like that, which that suddenly they see their husband who has passed 10 years ago in the room with them, like right there, and they're talking to one another, and the husband's like, I'm going to guide you to the other side. Everything's going to be
mhm,
fine. They're like, "Oh my gosh, okay, this is real." And so we're all capable of it here. It's all about kind of like it's thinning the veil. And
Mhm.
even for myself and my path, I had noticed that really what happened is first part of my life, there's been chapters, is when I went through the masking, but as a kid, I was really into theology, obsessed with it, actually. And there's something to be said with that. I once watched like an Instagram reel that was like, whatever you're passionate about as a kid, look at that and dive into that because there's something there. And that's so true because when I saw that reel, it was years and years ago. And before I got into, I was at that point, I was sitting with people in hospice, but I wasn't on my track where I am now, where it's about death awareness and bringing that to the public. I was like, well, theology, like, what am I supposed to become a nun? Like, am I supposed to get ordained? Like, how does that make any sense? But now it makes total sense because I use that so much in my workshops around death awareness because I show the parallels of all the different, the myriad of lineages and traditions and teachers and philosophies and religions that have basically a similar story of what happens in the afterlife using different language and different stories, but it takes you kind of it's to the same place. The underlying message is really similar. So I'm using my obsession from childhood so clearly now, which is another thing with the original question of like, how do you know you're in your calling? That was part of it too. It was like, oh, I'm bringing that stuff into my life now.
Mhm. That reminds me of, I can't remember her name, but she did become a nun, but she starts her story of, if I'm getting it correctly, that her father died when she was really young, and the family was telling her mother not to bring her to the services because she was too young. And her mother brought her, and she felt nothing but peace and actually drawn towards the nuns that were there. And that is reminiscent of what you were talking about, is just that inner knowing. And this theme comes up of fearing fear more than feeling fear. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with a study or an article. I can't remember where I heard this, but I think about it was about terminally ill children, end of life. And the short story is that children who understood what was going to happen to them and what was going on had less fear, less anxiety than the children whose parents and doctors talked out in the hall. And the idea or the thought was that for these children, or not the idea, I think they know it because through talking to them and researching, was that their mind went to, this must be really, really bad if they won't even talk to us about it,
Mm.
really scary. I think that goes back to that, right? Like your parents were doing the best that they could for you growing up. And I appreciate you being really vulnerable on their mindset around the potential of maybe that was suicidal ideation. But just so many examples of why I think your work is so beautiful and so important and your calling. Uh, because of these reasons that our parents may not always have the tools for our souls, but that's kind of predetermined to get us to where we want or need to be, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And that sense of surrender to the fear, it's not about like a sense of defeat, it's about trust. So to your story, when the parents are sharing with their children, like this is what the situation is like, it builds trust. It builds even trust within themselves. Like I trust myself that I can handle this.
Yeah.
If the parents are not talking about it, this happens also with family members at end of life. Same thing. Sometimes they avoid the topic altogether. Then it creates the sense of like defeat.
Yeah.
You're not even allowing the person to see what they're capable of. And this is the final chapter. So this is big. Imagine writing your own book. Like you want the final chapter to have like pow, like you want
Hmm.
enlightenment at the end of life. Like that's why I call my movement the dying awake movement, because we want to die awake. That's how we want our chapter to end. So like with that, you need to have open communication. And in situations when there isn't, like if there's so much denial around death at end of life. It like really creates this chasm where conversations that need to be had don't happen. But there's so much that can happen in open communication that once the person has passed, then there could be a sense of like regret. You didn't take the opportunity to really make it something that's all about love, compassion, insight, communication, and trust. Just trust.
When you make me think of that, we put so much around the birth of a child, right? There's celebrations, there's showers, and end of life, we wait until after to celebrate their life, which is lovely. And also there's so much more, like you said, that's occurring. And I love also that you talk about the bringing in these different archetypes or mythology or stories from different cultures into your teachings, because I think there's a lot to be said about, when you talk about atheists and I think about faith, different spiritual beliefs, religions, if you will, as these external markers of how do we create meaning or how do we connect with meaning in our life through something outside of us, through a story, right? This is the way our brain works. We need to hear in stories and in archetypes so that we can understand it and internalize it for ourselves and make our own meaning. And also, if you can connect with that experience, even if you don't have a near birth experience or anything close to that, if you can find opportunities or ways to build this sense of self-trust, and sometimes we do it on our own. Most of the time we are doing it not on our own, but we have to go on our own path because it's usually not what we're born into. Our family dynamics don't usually teach that oftentimes. But you can build that trust that that there's nothing to be afraid of, even in your day-to-day life. Like you said, those moments where you're like wailing on the floor, you don't have to be afraid of the painful emotions because with them. And there's such a beautiful parallel to both the things that we fear, the emotions and the pain that we fear in life, and we prolong and we try to distance ourselves from, versus just going into it and surrendering to it. Like you said, it's like just trusting that I am capable of holding these emotions. It doesn't feel good, it's not pretty, but I'm capable of coming through them on the other side. And I really love that.
Don't doubt yourself. It's actually really, really, really great because you said there's a couple things there that I want to touch on. First is you talked about bringing in spiritual teachings as a means of like a catalyst to sort of start a starting point.
Yeah.
And there's definitely something that there, like, but teachings are still constructs of our human conscious mind.
Totally.
So it's only really through direct experience that we can actually touch onto our inner gnosis, that truth. The truth that we're infinite beings is like it's experimental, like it's not something that can be taught. But teachings are good because they're just like a 2D map. It's like a GPS
Mhm.
map. It tells you where to go. Super
Yeah.
helpful. But you have to be out on the land, on the terrain itself to actually be able to experience it. And
Mhm.
that's just our human experience. It's a series of catalysts in our life that propel our growth into this remembering. So anytime I call it catalyst, it's just direct experience, but I like the word catalyst because it's what it is. It's like if you have a chemical reaction, you need a catalyst, and that like all you get that catalyst and you get a whole new element or whatever it is that you're experimenting on. And these catalysts lead to expansion. So I think of everything with around terms of energy because I'm also an energy worker, I'm Reiki certified, master attuned, and I facilitate psilocybin retreats. So I work with plant medicines, and a lot of that is energetics. And what I have found in my own life and what I teach. So, like I said, there's so hard to explain this sometimes, but there's you have to become a balanced person. And then once you become balanced, you can expand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, through all these things that happen in our lives, it's really important to learn to balance your energy. And what I mean by that is both polarities are perfect. So, if you are in a state of fear, that's one polarity. The antithesis of that, the complete opposite of that, also exists, which is surrender or acceptance or comfort. And if you can sit with that, put yourself into a meditative state and feel where it is in your body, where fear is coming from. Like, let's use grief as an example because it's really helpful. This is how I work with people that are grieving through bereavement. Grief is often felt in the heart, but also some of the lower chakras. And when you feel it, let's say in your heart, you call it for exactly what it feels like. And then you call out its opposite. And then you sit with both and say, both exist. I am perfect. I am whole. I can carry both of these aspects of myself. And it sounds so simple, but when you start doing it, it is completely transformative because you'll suddenly walk away from that being like, oh, I feel lighter. And the lightness comes from the fact that you're just a more balanced individual at that moment. And the heart chakra is quite literally like a portal to the higher chakras.
Mm-hmm.
So often, like before a psilocybin ceremony, the preparation leading up to it isn't just like dieta, like with ayahuasca, where it's the food you take. I lead people through an energetic preparation, and that's what the balancing of the energy is, so that they can balance their lower energetic centers, open up their heart, so that they can then receive what happens through the plant medicine and at the higher energetic centers. Because if those are not clear and open, people will have these transcendent experiences, but they could actually be sometimes damaging. It's almost like 10 steps forward, 20 steps back, and you're like, whoa, 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 what's going on? You really have to balance. And from that balancing comes the expansion, which is what I teach as frequency alignment. And that's where I bring that into my workshops and my online cohorts, my coaching, but you need to be balanced first. And then comes the elevation. Then comes aligning yourself to your highest frequency. Your crown chakra is almost like your signature, your energetic signature of it all. And it's also your state of being that you take with you into the afterlife.
Mm-hmm.
It's the most crucial part of the work that you do leading up to your death. Literally, it's the stuff you take with you. And I know that from sitting with people. I know that through all my studies in theology, that again, the 2D map, but I also know it from complete direct experience.
Even before we had started, I had shared with Michelle, I was like, what I'm really interested in is that mind-blowing story and near-death experience. And just circling back before we get into that, the piece of this duality, I love that it's coming up in this format. We talk about this a lot, and I got a little bit teary-eyed because going through grief, that has been a big journey for me. Just collapsed on the ground, sobbing, and then having a thought that was hysterical. And it was this work of, again, programming, conditioning, right? You're not allowed to feel joy and grief, but I had had these really beautiful expanders and people like you who feel called to spread that message that were put in front of me. And this is, again, just validating it and in such a different place. And to your point, I can attest that there is this shift, and I'm getting chills right now. And it doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt still, that grief, when there's joy, but it's an opening, it's a space. And sometimes I remember one time I was coming out of a store where they had played a song that just really, I mean, so I was like gasping for air because I was sobbing and also laughing hysterically because I was like, these people in this retail store are looking at like, what is wrong with this lady who is having an obvious breakdown over Shakira's song. Okay.
Yeah.
And so it's just, and I remember going out to the car and my friend was like, it was a tough time for me. So she was very concerned, but I'm like, I'm okay. But I'd never experienced the both. So I was thinking of that as you were talking. And yes, please story time. Which story do you feel called to share
I,
next?
I would love to put a pin in the story time because I want to address what you just said.
Okay, cool.
Because that's incredibly important. Having the capacity for joy when you're grieving is incredible. It is such a gift. And I found that so many people refrain themselves from feeling joy, like as if they're actually doing something wrong, or as if they're doing something that's gonna like sever the connection with their loved one who has passed.
Yeah.
Like they feel the pressure to be sad, like it's connecting to be sad. And of course, you have to be sad, you have to go through grief. But it's like the balancing of the energy. There is joy too, to be able to carry both. You become balanced. And what I have found time and time and time again is the people who allow both to coexist, the tether between them and their deceased loved one becomes stronger
Mm.
so that their loved one will start visiting them in their dreams. They'll start seeing animal visitations. They'll start seeing synchronicities like a song playing that reminds them of the person. But you have to, it's like forming, there's attachment styles when with human to human relationships. Like there's a secure attachment style, anxious, and avoidant, right? Grief and your attachment style with your loved one is exactly the same way. And if you have an avoidant attachment style with them, you're denying, you're in the state of denial of your grief. If you have anxious, you're attached way too hardly. You're holding on to that person, you're not letting go. You have to allow to let them go and move on because they still exist. They're out there, they're not gone. If you want to feel the connection with them, you have to find a secure attachment style with them. So you allow the beauty of their love, you allow the memory to flood you whenever it needs to flood you, and find laughter and joy and celebration in it while also grieving.
Mhm.
Just allow both of them. And then you might start seeing like strange things happening. Or sometimes I even get the sensation that they're present. Like I can't describe it. It'll be like, I'll think of them, they'll pop into my head, and then it feels like someone's in the room. I'm like, Jim, is that you? And it's that you're just become the open channel because you have no blockages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's wild because I think during that period of such grief, and I had a lot of loss back to back to back, especially during that time, I know what you're talking about because I did feel like even though I had a lot of people keep passing, it's almost that I was so overloaded in my emotions that I had no other choice but just to surrender. And I think I've experienced that. And I
Yeah.
really am appreciative that you put the attachment in terms as this, right? That's very eye-opening for me. And secure attachments are when we feel safe and connected.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so really, really eye-opening, like you said, too. I think in terms of feeling like we're blocking ourselves, whether it's grief or living your life in a state of fear of decision making of whatever it is, right? It's like a spectrum of intensity, the end of life being on one end of the spectrum. But I think one of the biggest things that blocks us just as humans is when we judge ourselves for the emotions because it's like this instant wall of like, nope, not allowed to feel this. And there are boxes of what is acceptable. And and I just everything in life comes back to trust. I really like there is not a single experience that does not find its traces back to a sense of self-trust and it's so powerful to just think about it in that way. And if I say this quote one more time, I swear I've said it multiple times, every recording, every week, and every moment. But that Francis Weller quote of the work of the mature person is to hold grief in one hand and gratitude in the other and be stretched large by them both. And it is like this,
Yes.
I strive to live life in that way. And it's, and Ali and I were, when you were talking earlier, Korona, Ali and I was, we can't really make eye contact on the screen because I don't know, because we're on different squares. But I was thinking to Ali's experience of how many times she would voice note me, and it was like, I had a dream with this person. And it is this clear through line to your ability to build your own sense of security and trust that you can surrender. And so at the same time, just as a friend and collaborator with Ali, so I was able to witness these moments where she was surrendering and feeling the expansion because those things were happening. And so to put words behind it and meaning it when you say this surrender is your rehearsal, death is your awakening, it was on my screen as you were talking because it is truly what I find the most fascinating about everything that you do that I'm learning in this conversation is yes, end of life. And also at its core, you're teaching people how to live in a lot of ways if they're awake to this information or this understanding, this wisdom. At any point in life, while you're still breathing, you get to have a say in how you live your life. And I there's more to it, but just thinking about what you said about how you enter the afterlife, there's, I don't know, it'll come back around, but I really, really love all of this conversation. I'm ready for more. But yeah, it's really, you're putting a lot of, I don't know if it would be structure, but like the blueprint, like you said earlier, around things that we feel and we talk about that apply not just to end of life, but to literally every aspect of how you live your life. You can relate to all of this so much of how you create your own sense of meaning and how you create your own sense of safety and what that does in your relationships. It's really, really cool is not the right word, but it's very cool. I don't know, maybe it is.
Yeah.
Totally is.
Right. Are we in story time yet?
Yes, let's.
Yeah, I
I
was like, I don't
love
want to
that.
ask another question. I just want to hear.
We didn't get into human design at all, but with my three line, it's very experimental in my personality. And so it's really important for me to experience to learn. And you had kind of talked about that. So for everyone, and also three lines and six lines in human design, it's especially important because it literally is this like, and that's when I'm going through all of this grief. It's so hard, but it's like, I know I have to experience it. And so, leading into your stories, that's also another really cool way for me to get to experience the work that you do. I know you had a couple of stories. Which do you feel called to share?
So I'll start with my out of body experience. So there's a build up to the actual experience that I think I will share because it is relevant. So I was living in Boston, and behind my apartment was a park. And every time I walked to the train station to go to work, I'd cross this park, and there was always a specific spot where I'd suddenly get this thought: I really want to see past the veil. Not, I want to go back home, because to me that means death. I really just want the veil lifted. That's what it kept coming up. I want the veil lifted. I want to see past it. I want to see who I am without this veil, without this mask. Not a mask, but the veil of being human. My partner at that time got us tickets to go to Fenway Park. That's the Red Sox stadium. And before going, I decided to sit in meditation and do an earth offering, which I do sometimes. And I happened to pick this tree in that park where often I would get this message come through. I didn't realize that till later on, that it was connected. And my earth offerings are usually where I dig a hole, I place sacred objects, I close up the hole, I say a prayer, and my prayer was, I really want the veil lifted. And then I sit in meditation. Fast forward, I go to his place, and I'm starting to see tons of number synchronicities, like 333, which is now very related to me. I know the meaning for me is you're about to have a crazy metaphysical experience. Brace yourself. So I saw it on his microwave, like the microwave was stuck at 3 minutes and 33 seconds. I went into his bathroom. He had like a bathroom waterproof clock that was broken and it was at 3:33. I look at the ticket stub and it like my number, what a ticket number was 333. I'm like, oh, what is going on here? It's like the threes are following me. We get to the stadium and all is well until I suddenly start to feel like a little strange in my body. I'm starting to pick up on people's energies the way I've never experienced before. And it's a bit jarring, but I'm okay. And he looked over at me. He's like, are you okay? I'm like, I feel a little weird, but I think I'm okay. And famous last words. And then I start to feel that feeling of feeling people's energies start to grow and grow, almost like if you imagine yourself standing there looking out at 6,000 people in the stadium, it almost like it was like a liquid kind of spreading through the entire audience and kept growing until it got to this point where I felt like the entire stadium as one collective consciousness. And it was insanely overwhelming. It was sort of like a bubble. And if you can imagine a bubble, if you put something on the film on the surface of the bubble, it can kind of move up. I started to get this feeling like I was moving up the bubble. And in a way, I now recognize that that was the out of body experience starting to happen. I was still in my body, but at the same time, I wasn't because I was feeling this collective consciousness of the stadium. As soon as I got to like the nexus point, the top of the bubble, it's almost like the bubble burst and I completely lost consciousness. So my partner at the time said I kind of like spasmed out and I just dropped. But in my perspective, I got to that nexus point, boom, I was in a void. And my consciousness never stopped. It wasn't like there was no even brief interruption in my consciousness. It was like, I'm in the stadium, I'm feeling really overwhelmed, I'm feeling everyone's energy. I'm at this nexus point where I started to feel actually like I think this is why I popped out. I was becoming the collective consciousness. Like I was no longer observing it. It got to a point that I was it. And boom, I jumped out. And I was out for a long time because outside of what I was experiencing, my ex had like firemen carried me out of the stadium, placed me in the concourse area on the ground, called paramedics. The paramedics rushed over. So enough time for like all of this to be happening. Except for me, I was in this void of space. And in this void, I recognized that I'm not my name. Korona doesn't exist at all. I had absolutely no connection with it. I wasn't my personality. I wasn't anything except for just pure awareness. It's like truly the I am. I truly felt what it means to just be I am, pure awareness. And there was a moment that I thought, where was I before here? And as soon as I thought that, I suddenly had what a typical out of body experience is, where I was watching him carrying my body for a brief moment. And I kind of looked up, I looked into his face and it was pale, white, terrified. And I remember thinking, why is he freaking out so much? And then I popped back into this void of space. It was almost like I had a question, so I just automatically got transported to answer the question. Then I'm back. And I really just felt like that's just like a silly movie character I'm playing. That's not me. That is nothing to do with who I actually am. And when I stayed within this space, I realized, well, but I am something. Like I I exist, I'm aware, and I feel like there is something that makes me me. It's not my name, it's not my personality, it's not my ego. And what I recognized it's like it's my frequency. It's the signature, it's the imprint of my frequency. It's the energy that I'm capable of holding when everything else is stripped. And so I stayed in this space and I started then hearing a distant like clicking, and it kept getting closer and closer and closer until it was on the left side of my head, which is also really interesting because after that experience, I started to hear disembodied voices. And about like a month after it, I heard a voice say, "Hello, human, it is Angel." And it was in the exact same spot as when I heard the like knocking. It actually, when it was by my ear, it sounded like it was knocking. And when it was by my ear, that's when I woke up and I was on the ground in the concourse of the stadium, paramedics all around me with like the gurneys and everything in a wheelchair. And I came to and I look up at my ex and I'm like, "Am I okay?" And he goes, "I don't know." The worst thing to say when someone just came out of something like, "Am I okay?" And they're like, "I don't know." Tell me what
Yeah.
happened. And then I go, "Can I move?" And he's like, "I don't know. Can you?" And I had realized that I couldn't like immediately move. I was still disassociated from my body, where my body felt like a puppet that I had to
Mm.
try to control, and I had to like really try hard to control my body. So the paramedics sort of helped me up. They put me in a wheelchair, and then as soon as I guess there's seatbelts on wheelchairs. So they like strapped me and they buckled the seatbelt. And my flight or fight
Not
instinct,
having it.
I was like, no, 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 no. I
Mhm.
immediately thought they were taking me to a mental institution.
Yeah.
That's my first thought is I had a psychotic break. And I think they're like, what?
Mm.
So I told them to unbuckle it and then I ran away, but I still couldn't control my body very well. So my ex said I looked like I was drunk and I was just kind of
Like Phoebe running. Have you
like,
watched
yes,
Friends? Not to laugh, but I can picture.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look at both emotions, fear and laughter.
Phoebe, totally all the way. But I told my ex, take me to a tree. I need to sit in front of a tree. I need to ground. I need to get back into my body. Eventually kind of like came back into my body and all of that. But the most important part of the experience was that realization that that's why I teach frequency alignment, that that's the stuff that exists forever. It's infinite. And that we do come down and have this human experience so we can elevate our frequency, so we can actually do the work. Because I feel like if I had that experience now, and I moved past the veil again, I would have a different signature because I have done so much work since then. And when people say, you have your soul contract, you come down to earth and you choose your life ahead of time before you're even born so that you can learn these life lessons, you can go through these life's catalysts. I totally believe that because that's exactly what it feels like. Like I have work to do here so I can keep elevating my frequency. We absolutely take that with us.
Mhm.
That's who we are deep down inside. And even Tesla says we're all energy, frequency, and vibration. That's what we are. And the fact that all matter is 99.999% of empty space. It's like this is all an illusion. Who we really are is not our body, it's not even our mind. It's the stuff that you can't see. It's the invisible stuff.
I know that what you're saying is so true because as soon as you said the I am, my whole body felt it because you're putting words. I don't even know why it makes me emotional because it's this beautiful feeling, but because you feel overcome because you know it, like when you know something to be so true, right? Like I really believe that. And I think part of my personality makes it helpful to because I'm can look at things pretty objectively and feel, and part of it is avoidant attachment. I feel really comfortable in the polarities of just emotion in general, right? And part of that is lived experience, right? It's traumatic childhood and learning to protect yourself and then growing past the protection wards to accepting that, that's it's the whole, again, what we chose to come here and learn. And I really believe that. And I think also what makes it so real and true, what you're saying, is because if it weren't so powerful, right? This is powerful stuff, right? To be able to trust what the afterlife, to be able to trust frequency, that's powerful. And when you have that knowing, or you're on your way to deepening that knowing, remembering it. Any of us that get to that, to any point, right? There isn't an end point, I don't think. But I think that that is it's a force, it's a powerful energy that cannot be controlled by anything externally. And so if it weren't true, if it weren't 1,000% true in our being, then to go back, the Gnostic Gospels wouldn't be erased or tried deeply to erase from our history, right? And we would all know this because it's what we would be taught, but instead we're taught to move through external centers of power to reach, etc., right? To reach divinity, you need to go through, you need to do X, Y, Z. When the truth is, we have it all in us the entire time. And I just want to shout out to something is, before we hit record, you told us that by trade you are an architect. You also told us about the scuba diving, that you're a scuba diver, which so much there. But I'm such a believer that people oftentimes who are here to share a message that is maybe less tangible, less or more difficult for our very human brains to wrap themselves around, oftentimes the most potent teachings come through people who understand, who can intellectualize and give a very objective approach to these very tangible experiences that are hard to connect to in your human or they take work, right? Like we don't all just come with this knowing, and if we do, we all do actually, but we are in different ways we're told everything opposite or to layer on top of that knowing. And so I love, this Libra balanced approach.
Thinking her Libra in the body when she was explaining, I was like, of
Yeah.
course, girl, you got a Libra moon,
Yeah,
right? Or
like
your
you
moon in your body. And that's literally what
totally.
is a foundation for you helping people in your work.
Yeah, because there's a real practical element to something that is so just bigger than, what we can see and feel physically. And there was something you talk about too. I don't know that we brought it up, but I think in this conversation about not to take it to manifestation because I'm not really, I don't know, I just allow things to come. I do my
Yeah,
work
that's
and then the
my
things come to me. But what you say, like not what you accumulate, but what you embody. And I think that's a really interesting time too about all of this conversation. We look at manifestation as so material plane. And so of what do I want to have, not what do I need to be or want to be or desire to be. So tell us about that.
Yeah, manifestation's a topic that just gets thrown around a lot
Mm.
these days. It's almost annoying.
Yeah.
I feel you, Michelle. But I bring it up sometimes because there's like a third way of looking at it, and it's not. So, for example, if you're trying to manifest love or a relationship, right? Instead of people will tell you this, instead of like trying to figure out what kind of qualities you want in a person, then feel like you've already had that love in your life, right? So that's like the embodiment part. But I take it a step further, and it's because of frequency alignment, it's you can't even take your partner with you. So what frequency of that thing do you truly want to embody that you can actually take with you? And that's the part of embodiment where it's not even about the other person. It's not even getting love from someone else. It's about becoming love. It's truly not about giving or taking. It's exuding it so fully that you see yourself in every individual that you look at. You see your God in within yourself and you see God in others. And that is an elevated frequency that you will notice when the veil is lifted. Or like, because love is one of the highest frequencies, right? Love, gratitude, and authenticity. So then when you look at abundance, right? Instead of manifesting the car or the job with all the money, instead of already feeling like you have the job and the money, you start thinking, well, I can't take any of that money and job with me, but what can I take with me? And when you really sit with it, I sat with it for a while and realized like, oh, gratitude I will take with me. So if I already feel the gratitude of abundance, not even if I don't even have it, abundance can be feeling grateful to breathe right now, for being alive. Like that's enough. And then eventually, like the abundance comes into your life because you are full of gratitude. The fact that people say full of gratitude, that's abundance. Gratitude makes you feel full already. And then, like, yeah, authenticity. It's like start vibrating at those levels instead of asking and wanting and pulling in, just start vibrating.
Yes. Preach.
We could, I already know, but we could talk for hours and hours and hours here. And I want to start bringing us to a close of our time together today. I think it'd be,
Aw.
I know, because I'll find you. You're in Beacon.
Reminded me, what was that movie? I'll find you.
The Wedding Crashers.
Yeah, because I'll find you. I think it's important to because we've talked about so much, but who could benefit from your work, or who do you see show up to work with you, come to your workshops, your sessions? Who is your audience? And I hate to like narrow it down because to me, it's everyone.
You're right.
Although for people just exploring this area or just getting curious, help them understand why might it make sense to inquire with you or to go to your website and ask a question and get a free voice note back on death? You have that on there too to start.
I do have that.
Yeah.
I have the option that, yeah, just send me a question and I'll send over a bespoke response. I also have a free virtual event monthly that is the practice of balancing energies. So it's the prerequisite for sort of my workshops and my online courses. But you nailed it on the head. You said it. It's the people who are curious. Like tell the people who are curious those are the people. Like the ones that maybe are sort of like have been avoiding the topic of death. Maybe it hasn't been in their psyche at all, but they're open to it. Because like you also said, I started my work thinking I want it to be accessible for absolutely everyone because everyone needs it. And what I had found over the years is that it actually doesn't make an impact for people if they're not willing to be curious about it. Like curiosity is the prerequisite for this making an impact on someone. Because if they arrive and they're closed off or it's too triggering, then they might not actually get the benefits. Like there might be a seed planted, which is always also super crucial. It's really helpful, even if you don't feel like you're absorbing it. So it's mainly curious people. It's mainly people who maybe are really deep in their spiritual practice, but haven't considered that their own mortality is part of the spiritual practice. So bringing that in and seeing how it's going to expedite their own inner work. And of course, it's for people who are going through the process. So maybe their caregivers or someone in their life is terminally ill. It's helpful for those people that are grieving. And I had a thought, but then it disappeared.
While you're thinking, I've been just, we almost lost my dad and his physical being here 9 years ago. And so I think about how quickly those moments can come. And he's still here physically with us. And then also leading into a heart surgery he had earlier this year that opened up this conversation we were having. So when I was thinking about who does this make sense for, again, it's so wide because I was thinking about questions like, how do I have conversations for not only their highest good, but my highest good in these relationships, knowing that it's inevitable, right? Like the only thing guaranteed is we will leave here. And so I was thinking about that as well, just the curious. And I can see how other healers, coaches could all really, really, and that's a short list of the wide variety of people who I think their gifts and their practices and their services, I think would be tremendously positively impacted through working with someone like you and also getting this perspective and this healing in their own world.
Yeah, thank you, Ali, for recognizing that because I have been told that before that Maybe a path is working with people who are already healers and coaches for them to learn how to bring it in their own practice. I'm not trying to gatekeep here. In the end, I would love for everyone to be incorporating death awareness into their practices. So maybe that's a route in the future. But yes, absolutely. And the thing that I was going to say that left my mind for a minute was that I sometimes have like death workers show up to my workshops. They also get a lot out of it. The last workshop I had, there was a gentleman that was like, "Oh my gosh, I sit with people and I try to bring in death awareness as a subject." And he's like, he was actually in tears. He's like, "I never thought to frame it through that perspective before, through almost like a spiritual perspective. I was always like logical about it." And that was so insightful. Like the way I can show up for people can be different now and more evolved. So, yeah, to that point.
It's beautiful. So, Michelle, any lingering thoughts before we get into our questions at the end?
Well, I was going to ask about, maybe it's practices or any thoughts on people who are who are curious, or what does that look like in daily life? Like something that maybe you do that connects you to that sense of remembrance or home that anyone could just try. And then I was like, oh, just go to your virtual event monthly. But also if there's anything that comes up for you in that.
Yeah, the monthly virtual event is one aspect for sure, but just something that you can carry over after listening to this that you can do immediately is something I sometimes do is maybe take a week and filter any spiritual question that you have through the lens of instead of asking like what does God want me to do? Or instead of that, ask, what do I, as God, in this form, choose to experience? So then instead of praying for something outside of yourself, recognize that prayer is just God talking to itself, exploring possibilities. Like really start to take ownership of the fact that you are this infinite being. Source consciousness is just fractured, that you are a fractured part of source consciousness, but you are still source consciousness. Because when that's the remembering comes from remembering who you are. That's what remembering is. It's like really coming back to your true nature. So that's a quick little thing you can do. I have other exercises like that that are like quick and easy that just reframe mindsets. And that's what I do in my psilocybin preparation is I kind of have these sort of like for a week, for 2 weeks, just look at the world this way. Step one, two, and three, just start looking at it and it just reframes because it's all about set and setting. So mindset, it just reframes their mindset so they're ready to experience that journey.
I really subscribe to this belief that we are God experience itself in human form. And that belief is what I believe really helps me feel comfortable in the spectrum of emotions and human experience. I think it's what helps me feel comfortable knowing that there are so many unknown challenges and joys and all of the things to come, and I don't have to worry about what it is, just about how do I show up to them. And I love the question that you pose, what do I, as God in this form, choose to experience? And because it opens up that understanding past just the emotions that I can connect to it, but to a lot of other things. And I think it is more to how do we continue to expand the way we embody these beliefs that we hold, like this example. And I really appreciate that. I'm gonna use that this week.
Yeah, I think it naturally brings up this. If I want to do work with you or learn more about some of these practices, where can people find you? What's the easiest way, aside from looking in our show notes to all of the links, what's the easiest way for people to find you?
OmniaMirari.com. So Omnia Mirari actually comes from it's a long quote from a botanist from like the 17th century or something like that. And the quote itself is Omnia Mirari etiam tritisma, which translates to everything is miraculous, even the most commonplace. So people sometimes are like, what is Omnia Mirari? Like what? to remember it. So I kind of tell them that the meaning behind it, it's like a little easier to remember. So if you go to my website, the homepage just lists all the offerings. It has the free webinar. But on top of that, like I do in-person workshops, but what I'm doing for 2026 is I'm creating a festival-like event. So it's bringing in, I have a core team of facilitators that are all end of life doulas that are phenomenal people. We might even be bringing Native American elders, one who's an end of life doula, and it's all about ritual and ceremony and really a really integrative immersive experience where you tap into your inner gnosis and you go through this like direct experience of what death is and what it means and what the afterlife is. We're going to have near-death experiencers tell their story. We're going to have like past life regressions with the hypnotherapist, like super inclusive. And so I have a wait list button. You can join the wait list. You can join the wait list for my next virtual online cohort. Or I also do one-on-one. Also, if anyone just wants to have that conversation with me and take this topic a little further and talk about whatever,
Personalize it. Yeah, really
yeah,
make it about
totally
your
like
life. Yeah.
bespoke conversation or even like grief bereavement conversations, then I just have like a scheduling acuity link too. So super easy once you get to my website.
Amazing. So now is kind of the fun part where we get to know you just a little bit better on maybe a personal side. And one thing that I really want to bring up before we get off this call is circling back when you were saying that now you just almost see awe and joy and all things, that spider crawling up your leg and just how calm you were. Do you know which video
Oh,
I'm talking about? And because yesterday Michelle had literally, she
yeah.
was messaging me about like this spider and this fear. And like we were texting back and forth. And then when I looked today and when you brought that joy, I was like, yeah, she is in her. You were like, look at the green on this spider. And I was like, yeah, I can attest she has found the presence and peace.
Yeah. Oh, that's
It was
very
a massive spider. It was beautiful. And there was actually, that was in Costa
You'll
Rica.
die, Michelle. Go luck.
There was
yeah.
there was a couple that walked past us while my friend was filming that, and they were like, "You're lucky that thing isn't venomous."
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, I didn't really think about that part.
You're
Yeah.
literally like, I feel the webbing. I feel the.
Wow.
Girl, you are better than me. Well, what would be really, I think, cool to know is you've thrown a lot out there, but is there a quote or a mantra that really resonates deeply with you now or at any pivotal point?
Yeah, so I have a personal mantra that I work with all the time, daily. It pops into my head, and it's the love that I become is the love that I return to. Quite literally, the love that you become in this lifetime is the love that you return to. The more that you can hold love and the greater your capacity for love, the more you can trust that that's what you're moving towards.
So beautiful.
Beautiful.
And then any memorable feedback from either a client, student, I know you've done so much stuff, but any memorable feedback.
Feedback about life or feedback about me working with them?
I would say both or anything that came back to you from working your work that has really just been impactful or stands out for you for people working with you or experiencing you and your gifts.
Yeah, so there's a lot coming through in like little segmented ways, but it all boils down to compassion. So, my very first hospice experience with the woman who had dementia, she couldn't remember me every time I'd stop by. Have to be, tell her my name and who I am. And she was very grumpy. She was a grumpy woman. But I noticed the more I showed up every week, she started to sort of have more of a smile on her face. when she would greet me, it was almost like there was a remembering. And it got to a point where this is like months in, where she has no concept of time. It's like really, really bad dementia. But she would somehow know to be at the door at the time that I would arrive with a big smile on her face. And I would show up and she'd be like, "Who are you? I'm so happy to see you, but who are you?" So I learned from that that there's a heart memory that bypasses whatever the mind, whatever is broken in the mind, it doesn't matter. There's a heart memory there that doesn't go away. And this ties into that mantra, the love I become is the love I return to. And her remembering the love that I offered, that's what she was remembering. And that really stayed with me because it was my very first experience. And I sort of carried that with me. It's like every time I sit with people, the only thing I do is just love them. That's all you need to do is just show up with so much love and so much compassion that it just radiates out of you and you have no choice but to pick up on it.
Have you heard of I was telling Michelle earlier, there are monks doing a peace walk. And
Yeah.
I jumped on their live stream last night to get to hear his talk, and it just feels really well timed, your message, because he was talking about, the walk. They're walking 21 to 33 miles a day, and people driving by purposely trying to get their exhaust on them and swerving. And I mean, it's shocking, but it's the reality. But he used it as an example of, I mean, these are my words. Like, yes, do they get angry and fucking pissed? And is that ridiculous? Absolutely. But it's the practice of sending them love, and
Yep.
that energy there. And I think what a beautiful thing, because dementia and anything of the brain, I can only imagine how scary that could be. So to hear, yeah, it just makes me a little tender and emotional that love is still there. And so to be able to give that to people in those times is just beautiful and a gift.
That
Yeah.
gave me hope too, seeing that, because I worry about my parents and if they would like start having dementia in their later years. But witnessing that kind of gave me hope. It's like there's another layer here that we're sometimes not aware of or that we ignore, which is fear. Fear is the veil. Fear is the thing that keeps you from seeing truth.
Totally.
We're in this perpetuated state of fear. We can't really show up for people fully with compassion and love.
Yeah, and on the flip side too, to the monks, it's, when people question how can you still see love and show love, and I think part of it is having compassion for other people's fear. And it doesn't, and
Yeah.
again, to holding both, right? To holding the polarity. You can see someone's fear and see their behaviors from a place of fear and have compassion for them. And you can also, it doesn't condone the behavior. It doesn't, right? It's like forgiveness too. There's a lot in there about, I don't, what occurred is not okay. And I can see you and still hold love for you as a human being because you're coming from a place of fear. And that must be really heavy to hold also for you. You're just expressing it in oftentimes harmful ways and that are not okay, but there's a lot in there, and that is what a lifetime of, or not, but of work. And I love this term heart memory because it's like so internal of, it feels like your heart memory is totally, it's the frequency, right? It's what you bring. And her ability to connect with her own heart memory is what allowed her to recognize you, I think, or I feel in this moment. And so, so beautiful. So our last question that we ask everyone is, what does self-love mean to you?
Ooh, that's a good question to ask people. Self-love for me is truly accepting all parts of myself. And it's it's also being able to see what is me and what is a thought and what is a shadow. To be able to really differentiate from those things. Because I myself, in full transparency, struggle with self-love. Like I have moments where I am really, really hard on myself. But throughout my own inner work, I'm more able to discern what is me and what is the programming that has created all this negative self-talk and separate the two and then both and love both of them. Love that that programming is there, it's okay. And it's for me, when I bring something to awareness, it suddenly takes less control of me. So when I just become aware of that, I relinquish the power that it has over my psyche and I can kind of move past it fairly quickly.
Well, I feel so honored to have been in conversation with you, and I have taken note of your offerings coming up, and I am excited about finding the time and space to start integrating into some of your work. And I am sure that our listeners will be as well. And so I just really want to thank you for your time, Korona, and just really say thank you for the beautiful, beautiful work that you do. And even just going to your website and your social and having this conversation today has personally really impacted me in a lot of ways. So I have no doubt that that's the energy that will keep spreading across the ethos. And we're just very honored that you said yes to a DM that came through to join us in conversation.
Yeah, shout out to Sabrina.
Yeah. Sabrina, we love you if you're listening. Yeah,
So
it's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much. I love talking to you and I feel like this is a beginning of actual friendship. I feel connected to the both of you. So for that, I'm so grateful.
same. All right, Karmic Mirror community, thank you again for joining. Thanks for tuning in. If you resonate with today's conversation, connect with us on Instagram at Karmic Mirror Podcast and send us a message.
And don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen. And if you're loving Karmic Mirror, we'd appreciate a glowing review or a share with someone who could benefit.
As we close, remember, life is not a one-size-fits-all approach. How are you honoring your unique path? Stay curious and always be kind to yourself. Until next time on Karmic Mirror.